Canto 4, Chapter 12, Text 10. Atta yajata yagyesha kratu virbhuri dakshinai dravya kriya devatanam karma karma phalapradam. Please repeat. Atta, thereafter. Ayajata, he worshipped. Yagya Isham, the master of sacrifices. Krato Bihi, by sacrificial ceremonies. Bhuri, great. Dakshinai, by charities. Dravya Kriya Devatana, of sacrifices, including various paraphernalia, activities and demigods. Karma, the objective. Karma pala, the result of activities. Pradam, reward. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Suhotra Swami, As long as he remained at home, Dhruva Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices in order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are specially meant to please Lord Vishnu with the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benediction. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 3.9 it is said, Yugyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. One should act or work only in order to please the Supreme Lord, otherwise one becomes entangled in the resultant reactions. According to the four divisions of Varna and Ashram, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are especially advised to perform great ceremonial sacrifices and to distribute their accumulated wealth very liberally. Dhruva Maharaj, as a king and ideal Kshatriya, performed many such sacrifices, giving very liberally in charity. Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are supposed to earn their money and accumulate great riches. Sometimes they do it by acting sinfully. Kshatriyas are meant to rule over a country. Dhruva Maharaj, for example, in the course of ruling had to fight and kill many yakshas. Such action is necessary for Kshatriyas. The Kshatriya should not be a coward and he should not be non-violent. To rule over the country, he has to act violently. Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are therefore specially advised to give in charity at least 50% of their accumulated wealth. In Bhagavad Gita, it is recommended that even though one enters the renounced order of life, he still cannot give up the performance of yajna, dana, and tapasya. They are never to be given up. Tapasya is meant for the renounced order of life. Those who are retired from worldly activities should perform tapasya, penances and austerities. Those who are in the material world, the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, must give charity. Brahmacharis in the beginning of their lives should perform different kinds of yajnas. Dhruva Maharaj, as an ideal king, practically emptied his treasury by giving charity. The king is not meant simply to realize taxes from the citizens and accumulate wealth to spend in sense gratification. World monarchy has failed ever since kings began to satisfy their personal senses with the taxes accumulated from the citizens. Of course, whether the system is monarchy or democracy, the same corruption is still going on. At the present moment, there are different parties in the democratic government, but everyone is busy trying to keep his post or trying to keep his political party in power. The politicians have very little time to think of the welfare of the citizens, whom they oppress with heavy taxes in the form of income tax, sales tax, and many other taxes. People sometimes have 80 to 90% of their income taken away, and these taxes are lavishly spent for the high salaries drawn by the officers and rulers. Formerly, the taxes accumulated from the citizens were spent for performing great sacrifices as enjoined in the Vedic literature. At the present moment, however, almost all forms of sacrifice are not at all possible. Therefore, it is recommended in the Shastras that people should perform Sankirtan Yajna. Any householder, regardless of his position, can perform this Sankirtan Yajna without expenditure. All the family members can sit down together and simply clap their hands and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Somehow or other, everyone can manage to perform such a yajna and distribute prasad to people in general. That is quite sufficient for this age of Kali. The Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. Chant the Hare Krishna mantra at every moment as much as possible, both inside and outside of the temple, and as far as possible distribute prasad. This process can be accelerated with the cooperation of state administrators and those who are producing the country's wealth. Simply by liberal distribution of prasad and sankirtan, the whole world can become peaceful and prosperous. Generally, in all the material sacrifices recommended in the Vedic literature, there are offerings to the demigods. This demigod worship is especially meant for less intelligent men. Actually, the result of such sacrifices goes to the Supreme Personality of God in Narayan. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Bhuktaram Yajna Tapasam. He is actually the enjoyer of all sacrifices. His name, therefore, is Yajna Purush. Although Dhruva Maharaj was a great devotee and had nothing to do with these sacrifices, to set an example to his people, he performed many sacrifices and gave all his wealth in charity. For as long as he lived as a householder, he never spent a farthing for his sense gratification. In this verse, the word karma phalapradam is very significant. The Lord awards everyone different kinds of karma as the individual living entities desire. He is the super soul present within the heart of everyone, and he is so kind and liberal that he gives everyone full facilities to perform whatever acts one wants. Then the result of the action is also enjoyed by the living entity. If anyone wants to enjoy or lord it over material nature, the Lord gives him full facilities. But he becomes entangled in the resultant reactions. Similarly, if anyone wants to engage himself fully in devotional service, the Lord gives him full facilities, and the devotee enjoys the results. The Lord is therefore known as Karma Pala Prada. Ata yajata yagyesha katubir buri dakshina dravya kriya devata karma pala pradam. As long as he remained at home, Dhruva Maharaj performed many great ceremonial sacrifices in order to please the enjoyer of all sacrifices, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prescribed ceremonial sacrifices are especially meant to please Lord Vishnu, who is the objective of all such sacrifices and who awards the resultant benedictions. Akam karoti vachalam, pamilangayate garimya kripatam mande, Sri Gurum Jinasaranam. So in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 4, it is stated by the Lord, Adi Bhuttam Charo Bhava Purushachari Daivatam Madhyagyo Haneva Pradeha Dehe Deha Vritambara, which means, O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is called Adi Bhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adidaiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as a super soul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adijagya, the Lord of Sacrifice. So Adijagya is within the heart of everyone. And as we said the other day, and again, the same conclusion is established today, that he's in the heart. Why? To receive our sacrifice. Adi Yajna. That's why he's there. And it's mentioned in this verse, Adi Bhuta. So the Adi Bhuta means the material nature, or Bhuta can also mean living entities. So this is the paraphernalia, this is the Lord's own energy, which is manifested so that we can sacrifice. That is the reason it's there. There is no other plan, no other valid plan. If the human being does not perform sacrifice, there's that verse later, Evam Pavartikam Chakram, Nanu Vartitihi Aya, agayurindriyamaro mogaparta sajivati. If the human being does not execute the cycle of Vedic sacrifices, then mogam parta sajivati, he lives his life in sin. So someone may say, well, all right, sacrifice, but I have interests in some material happiness. So that is allowed, that is permitted. For those who are interested in sense gratification, then there is facility also in this sacrifice. But even there, the same thing as we just heard in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, actually, the offering of sacrifice is meant for the Lord. He is the enjoyer. He is the Yogya Purush. And even though someone may have his own interest to gratify his senses in the course of performing sacrifice or in enjoying the result of the sacrifice, still the performance of sacrifice itself, this is causing that, even that lusty living entity to advance. He's becoming trained, although he's a karmi. He's a karmi, but he's becoming trained in service to the Lord. And the process of sacrifice itself is purifying. Yajna in Vedic literature is said to be setu. Setu means bridge. So it's a bridge from this world to the other world. And actually the Vedas, they explain that in different ways. Some Vedic scriptures, the Karma Kanda say it is a bridge to Swarga, heavenly planets. The Jnana Kanda scriptures say this bridge to the Brahmajyoti, or to the self, the Atma. But the Bhakti Shastras say it is a bridge back home, back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Lord Adivya. Also mentioned this verse by Krishna, the demigod, Nadi Daiva. So they are situated on the limbs of the Lord. And they're just as our body is functioning to see, to hear, to taste, to take. So similarly, the demigods are functioning in the same way as the organs of the described here, universal form of the Lord. So demigod, this sacrifice, Vedic sacrifice, superficially seems to be demigod worship. But it's those who actually think that way, who actually think the sacrifice is meant only for the demigods, they are very foolish. Because the demigods, you see, it's just a functional body. So the hand takes something, but the hand is not just floating in space. What is the idea? Because something in someone's hand, the hand is connected to an arm, the arm is connected to the chest, and the hand is going to something to eat, the hand will put it in the mouth. So these foolish worshippers of demigods are only seeing the hand. I remember when I was a little boy, I saw a movie called Crawling Hand. I remember how, because I was very small, so it scared me a lot. His hand. When I was choking people, then it would run away on the road. Anyway, so that's the conception of the foolish demigod worshippers. Crawling hand and rolling eyeball. No. So, Hari Yajna, he's in the heart of everyone, there to receive our sacrifice. And we, the living entity, are there to offer sacrifice. And that is our dharma. That is our sanatana dharma. It is Actually, this Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, as Prabhupada explained, we heard it in the purport, so nice, everything explained very clearly, that it's not that Bhakti Yoga is one thing and sacrifice is another thing. People may do like that because they're interested in worshiping demigods and getting material results. But actually, the real point is of sacrifice is understood when one performs it like Dhruva Maharaj in devotional service. As Prabhupada says here, he did not spend even a farthing of his earning on sense gratification. So everything he was doing was for Krishna. So in this age, these very opulent ceremonial sacrifices are not possible. The paraphernalia cannot be gathered. But as Prabhupada is explaining, still the principle of sacrifice is current. In this age it is Harinam Sankirtan. So Srila Prabhupada said everyone must do this. And it's very simple to chant together, to come together. Prabhupada is actually speaking of the householders. Householders can hold such functions. People come to their house and they chant and prasadam will be distributed. This is sacrifice. So, this is our function as human beings. We must perform sacrifice. If we don't, as I explained, then that is sinful. But also you see, nonetheless, because that is our function, then there is some perversion of sacrifice. I was thinking as I was reading here about the very opulent ceremonial sacrifices, such as those performed by Dhruva Maharaj. So nowadays, that is reflected pervertedly. I was actually thinking of the space program. The government in places like America or Russia or other China, big countries which they can collect a lot of taxes because there's so many people. So it is, we see all the big countries, even India, they have space programs. France, England, Germany, they're working together. But all the either wealthy countries or countries with a lot of population they can tax. This is what they do with the money. And this is really, an extravagant program. You read the cost of one of these rockets they send up. One of these big rockets which can go to the moon. Higher planets, you see. That's what they want. Moon is a higher planet. They try to go there with also some kind of fire sacrifice. Big fire costing so much. $2 billion one of these rockets cost. And that was that was maybe still years ago. I remember that price. One of these rockets they sent up. Now it's probably much more. So these rockets go up, and sometimes the so-called sacrifice is unsuccessful. Recently the Russians, they were trying to send us something to Mars, and it just got lost on the way. And also in '93, the Americans too. Everyone's trying to go to Mars now. Mars is very important. In '93, the Americans sent up also a Mars satellite, but it also got lost. These rocket scientists, they they speak of there's something mysterious between Earth and Mars, and many. Actually, the Russians they've never been able to do it. They started even before the Americans trying to go to Mars, and they never managed because all of their rockets either blew up or got lost on the way. So the reason now everyone's so interested in Mars, you may find this interesting. In 72, one of these American satellites went around Mars taking photos. And they took 2 trips around one region. The photos show what looks to be a city, kind of city, and there's pyramids. And the most interesting thing is there's a kind of hill or something, and in the top of it is carved a face, which looks directly up. And this face, I always thought the face looked, when I saw it, I thought this looks like Hanuman. But then I have a video of a scientist. I mean, this is serious, this is not just some new age wackos, but this is big scientists. And the NASA, they just sent a rocket there just in December with the purpose of flying around there again with a camera 50 times more powerful than the last one, take photos again. So the scientist, he was presenting all this to the United Nations. Richard Hoagland used to work for NASA. So I have the video upstairs, I saw it. And he's saying, he's pointing to this face on Mars, and he's saying, this is a man-lion. It's a combination of a man and a lion's face. So I thought, well, that's very interesting. So of course they're divided. There's some people who say, well, this is just some, natural formations and it's a trick of light and shadow. But there's others who are taking it very seriously. And they're considering that these, you can see it pretty, it's very clear in the photo. There's a group of pyramids with 5 sides, 5-sided pyramids. And then over one side is space. Space even has teeth in the mouth. It's very clear, teeth. 2 eyes and everything. So anyway, so now their big thing is to go to Mars. And so much money they burn up, There's one of these rockets taking off. As that fire is coming out of the bottom, it's you can just imagine it's burning up millions of dollars as it's going up into the sky. The fire in the back represents the burning up of millions of dollars. So this is the tendency in the human being. Even though there's no Vedic knowledge, even though there's no intention to satisfy Lord Vishnu, but because Vishnu is there in the heart, therefore you see the activities of the human being, they resemble pervertedly sacrifice. And how is it? They're eager, you see, these leading countries of the world, they're competing. Let us throw more money into the fire, more money. Make a bigger fire, send a rocket higher than the other ones. We want to be the first. You see, Americans and Russians were competing. Who will be first on the moon? This is perverted Vedic sacrifice. So it's unavoidable. And you can see also this, I have to mention, the Sankirtan Yogi is pervertedly represented in that the Yuga Dharma is Sankirtan, which means glorification. Mass glorification. So that is the big industry in this modern time. So many, you see, if you want to become, actually you want to become successful in anything, even in the material world, it depends on this. Advertising. What is advertising? It's kind of Maya Sankirtan. Everywhere you see Coca-Cola. So what is that? It's putting in this name into everyone's mind. So then they repeat it. Of course, this is all, again, it's just for money making, nothing transcendental. But someone gets thirsty and he thinks Coca-Cola. And then he goes to the soft drink stand and he repeats this holy name. Coca-Cola. So this is Coca-Cola kirtan. And in everything, you see, in everything, in politics, everything, ultimately is depending upon making propaganda. Then you're successful. If you cannot get good advertising, if you cannot draw people's attention to your program, then you'll not be successful. Who cares for it? You cannot make money in this world. So, yes, the Yuga Dharma is Sankirtan for everyone. But the question is whether this yajna is being done for the satisfaction of Vishnu or not. That's the difference. All right, so we'll stop here.
Suhotra Maharaj ki
Jai.